Oh, wonderful.
We just really want to know about your knowledge. My grandson is joining us, and I'm gonna try to get my other grandson on. Jonah, where are you in school again?
I'm at Emerson College in Boston.
Emerson College in
Oh, hi.
Boston. All right. Jonah's an actor and dancer, so he can handle this, no problem. Welcome to another Richmond SCLC program. And today we have Sister Sandra Antoine, who is an expert in voter registration and voter information. And we're going to pick her brain real quick. We also have uh, Emerson College sophomore, Jonah Hodari, who is rather rather unique young man, and we'll get into that later. But we're going to get some questions from Sister Antoine here that we really need to know. Give us a little bit about your background, Sister.
Yeah, passionate. I'm very passionate about educating and empowering our communities, our folks, our people. Um, I a Vietnam era veteran. Actually, I spent many years in government work, state government, 2 terms at the actual governor's office, two former governors, spending time in the Restoration of Rights office. But I've had a passion for voting rights, civil rights, and the rights of people. I remember when I took that oath to defend this country, it was at the heel of that civil rights era, and we were still fighting for rights in this country. And I remember taking an oath to be willing to give my life for the defense of this country and our neighbors, foreign and domestic. But yet we were fighting for rights for my people, our people in this country, but willing to make a sacrifice because we were taught to stand up and be ready to bear arms. So I'm
Well,
excited about still
that's
being on this
awesome.
battlefield.
That's awesome. So your expertise is voting registration and voting rights.
Yeah,
T-
I
tell
say
us,
a passion.
uh-huh. Tell us again, when you worked in the governor's office with the restoration program, were you have you worked in voter registration from that era, that time, or is that where you got your expertise and your understanding of how it works?
No, sir. Um, I've been an advocate, voter, voter, boots on ground activist for many years, probably dating back about 40 years or more, um,
Wow.
right out of the military, fighting for just ensuring that the people had a right to vote. Having those opportunities to have employment that depended on a group of elected officials to basically sponsor and support my appointment to positions early on when I was in the state of Louisiana. So that in itself was a challenge in making sure to build that relationship with individuals that were elected that would also support me in my passion to be in a profession that I was looking to basically spend a life in, a lifetime
Well, well, thank you for your service to your country, and thank you for the service that you've done. I got another young man, Jeremiah Gilliam, who has joined us, and he is a freshman at Virginia State University. And what I'm going to ask you right now, since we have the two young men with us, is
in.
students who need to register to vote. You and I had a little earlier conversation yesterday about Jonah's in Boston.
Hmm.
And if he wanted to vote here in Virginia, what is it that he would need to do? And I think you told me the answer yesterday, but if he wanted to vote while he's in Boston from here in Virginia, what would he need to do?
So he would basically, he could actually go to and do it automated. He could do it online by going to the Department of Elections website, and he can do search 2 ways: either elections with an S dot Virginia spelled out .gov, elections.virginia.gov, or vote.virginia spelled out .gov. And on that site, it'll take him to an opportunity to, for him, he would need to apply for an submit an absentee ballot. I'm sorry, absentee application first and foremost. And when he submit that application, it will go to the Department of Elections that will in turn mail him the appropriate ballot for the locality where he's registered to vote.
Now, Jonah, do you have any questions you might like to ask her about that?
What about people who don't have internet access at their disposal? Do you know of any ways? Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. You can call the Department of Elections, Virginia Department of Elections. You can contact them and request an absentee application, and they can
Awesome.
mail that to you. Because once they mail you the application, you complete that. It needs to be submitted to them by October the 15th, by the close of business, 5 o'clock, in order to be accepted. Online, if it's done, and I know you asked about mailing it, but online they have up until 11:59 p.m. on that date
And
for
the
the
date
actual
again, what's the
registration.
date again? October the what?
So that for them, it's for this year's October the 18th. It's usually 22 days prior to election. So yeah, 22 days prior to election. And that's, so I was trying to do my math real quick. It's
Right.
going to be October for them. It's going to probably be October the 18th. I think October the 18th or October the 15th. And I have all these notes. I apologize.
And he has
So
to have
yeah, it'll be. Mhm.
requested it by then.
So he would have to request that. He would definitely have to request that by then. And so it'll be October. I'm sorry. The deadline to apply for absentee ballots. Sorry, I'm thinking about voter registration in general. I'm
Right,
hopping around.
right,
But to request an absentee ballot, he must do that by October the 28th. You have to do it
right,
by October the 28th, and then by 5 o'clock, they have to receive it by 5 o'clock on that day if it's going to be mailed, or 11:59 p.m. On that day if he's going to
okay,
do it online.
okay. Now Jeremiah has a little different of a thing. He's in at Virginia State University, but he
Mhm.
has an issue where he was living in Cumberland.
You were right, Cumberland.
He's now a student at Virginia State, and he's residing in Chesterfield. What would Jeremiah need to do if he, or a student like Jeremiah? I'm just using them as an example.
Mhm. Mhm.
And these are my grandsons, so I'm using both of
Okay.
them as guinea pigs,
Mhm.
just because I know that they'll work with their grandpa. But so Jeremiah, what would he need to do if he were trying to vote absentee in Cumberland, or if he needed to switch to Chesterfield?
So that's up to Jeremiah. It's up to him
Right.
whether or not he think. And I like to say, where's your vote going to be more powerful, more effective, to be one of those votes that can serve the people in your locality. So if you want to vote in an election for the Cumberland area, then you would reach out to your do an absentee ballot also, and you would use the address that you were registered at. And you're going to do that on any absentee ballot. If you're registered to vote, you on an absentee ballot, you use the address that you were registered to vote at, and then you would also have an option on that same application to tell them where to mail the ballot.
To
So he
mail
could
it.
choose to do it that way.
Okay, so Jeremiah, here's a issue that I want to ask you about. Do you know if the landfill is going to be on a ballot in Cumberland? Is there a referendum for that landfill on the ballot?
I am not aware of that.
Okay, so see, so what Ms. Antoine was saying is it depends on where your vote is really going to count more. So in Cumberland,
Mhm.
they're trying to put a landfill out there, and it's going to affect a lot of
Oh,
minority
okay.
people. And so
Okay.
it might be good to check to see if that landfill's on the ballot. You know, if there's a referendum or some kind of way that landfill's on the ballot, or if there's somebody who would vote against the landfill, because from what I understand, the majority of people, especially minorities, don't want that landfill in Cumberland. And so then
Okay.
the question
Okay.
is, okay, maybe in Jeremiah's case, it's more important to vote in Cumberland if there's somebody who's going to stand up against the landfill.
And Jeremiah, sort of piggybacking your grandfather. Yeah, and that's what I mean by um, how is your vote going to be more powerful? when you think of your family, your loved ones, your community, how can it be more effective? And we know every one vote counts. Every one vote counts. They're going to count it. And as he's mentioning about the landfill, do you think that that one vote, your vote, may be a determining factor whether or not they're going to put that landfill there? If that's the case, you want to submit an absentee ballot. And on that absentee ballot, all you're going to note on that is that you were registered, and you are registered in Cumberland. Is that correct? Are you registered to vote in Cumberland?
Yeah, he said he's not currently registered, but if he was, he could,
Which,
because they have a legal address in Cumberland. He could do it in Cumberland. He graduated from high school
okay, so
there.
this, okay, so, and you are 18 now?
Correct.
Okay, so you would do both. Again, in that instance, if you wanted to vote in Cumberland, you could, and do you have access to an internet? Because I'll stay there, because that's, very effective if you do.
I do.
Okay, so you would go to that same website, elections.virginiaspelledout.gov or vote.virginia.gov. You would submit your voter registration application on that as well. You would register to vote, but you also would turn around and in that same stroke, right afterwards, submit your application for absentee ballot if you wanted to vote in Congress. Yes, sir.
Great
So you would
information.
do both. And again,
Great information. Now, Jeremiah, see, this is another one of those reasons I was asking you and Jonah to talk. This came out, which is while young people may not totally have buy-in as to the voting process, in your case, if you know that most of the people in Cumberland are against that landfill, so here's the question, which is why wouldn't young people, or why aren't the young people in Cumberland, or are the young people in Cumberland getting together talking about the fact that they need to vote for anybody who is against the landfill? You see what I'm saying right now? If that's, and I don't know what's on the ballot in Cumberland, but this is that conversation that we were going to have, which is what are the issues that are important to young people in their area that can drive them to want to vote, Ms. Antoine. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have my grandsons talk about. It's not always the things that we think are obvious, and young people don't always understand that there's some hidden things in the background. In Jeremiah's case is perfect, because if there is a person who would vote down the landfill, then all the young people in Cumberland should be out there voting and Jeremiah, here's the important part. We're not worried about what party that person's in. See, this is an issue about the landfill. The person could be in any party, but if you all know in Cumberland that you don't want that landfill, then you need to find out who it is that's going to oppose it and need to support that. You see what I'm saying about issues that are important to young people? So, Jonah, are there any issues that are important to you that you want to ask Mrs. Antoine about? Because if not, I'm going to let the two of you all go, and I do appreciate you coming on. And I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you, are you registered to vote? But here's the thing that you do need to understand. Since both of you all drive, you can register to vote online. That right? Is that right, Ms. Antoine?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Since you have a driver's license, since you have a driver's license, you just go on the election online, put in your driver's license number and all the information as far as your address. And once you register, Jonah, then you can request that absentee ballot to be sent to you there in Boston. Virginia has made some really good strides in the last two administrations in changing the laws that benefit people. We have no excuse absentee ballots now. I get my absentee ballot all the time. As a matter of fact, look right here, whether you can see it in the light. I got my ballot the other day. Now, I haven't opened it yet. I haven't opened it because you have to open it now in front of a witness.
Absolutely.
The person that's going to sign that said that you did it. So keep this in mind for both of y'all if you decide to get absentee ballot. Don't open the ballot itself unless the person who's going to sign it with you is present. It tells you that right on the ballot. Doesn't have to be anybody related or anybody else, but they have to be the same person that's going to sign it as your witness. So once you open it, maybe just get them to sign it right then and there, and that way you'll have that taken care of. Thank you, Jonah and Jeremiah. Any questions? Go ahead, Jonah.
I'm good, but I appreciate you talking with us. Thank you.
Thank you to Jeremiah and
Yes,
both of them.
thank you.
Whether
Thank you for your willingness to
Ms.
share your
Antoine,
wisdom.
they're both members of SCLC, whether they wanted it or not, because
Oh, perfect.
their grandpa
Perfect.
being president signed them up and paid their money out of his pocket. So both of them are
That's
SCLC
how
members.
good. That's
Thank
how
you.
good. Yeah, but I do want to just end with them with a message to them, just knowing just how important, at some point in time, as your grandfather and we are, that torch is getting pretty heavy as we get older. So, we're ready to hand that torch over. And it's so much that that how we benefit from our voices, that our vote when it comes to how our community is going to be served and who's going to represent us. And so we want a part in that. I said, I want to say, I want to have a say so with who's going to stand and represent me. I want to have a say so.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote. If even my candidate doesn't win, which I always pray that they do, know that I voted against someone. And people often say, and a lot of young, I get it a lot of times, this well, I don't like either candidates. Know this, find something out about that candidate. There has to be something that affects you or your family. You vote for that. You vote
Oh,
against anyone that's pushing back on something that would benefit you. So I just wanted to
absolutely.
put that.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, if you saw the news today, Jonah, here in Richmond, several schools had a walkout because of LGBTQ rights, right?
Mhm.
I don't know if you saw that news, but the kids walked out of school on that, right? Well, now,
I did
Mhm.
hear about that.
and a lot of people are complaining about it and everything else. But what I try to tell people is, no, they have a right to express their opinion. And if that is the
Exactly.
issue that's important to people in your generation and today, that people's rights be recognized, both of y'all have friends that are members of those communities, right? And so the point is, you need to vote for people who are going to support them. Yet that's the important part. It might
Mhm.
not be, you might not agree, like Ms. Antoine said, you might not agree with all the issues. But God knows if people are going to vote against LGBTQ rights, then you need to vote against them. You take a stand and say, hey,
Mhm.
look, this person is going to do everything they can to deny the rights to my friends and my people. And I'm going to take a stand and encourage people to register to vote and vote against that person. That's a perfect day for having this conversation. Thank both of you gentlemen for coming. I told you I wouldn't take too much
Thank
time.
you.
Maybe I can get you back one time now that you see it's not as bad as you thought it would be.
All right.
See?
Thank you. Thank both
Have
of
a nice
y'all.
night.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a good night.
And I appreciate my grandsons coming on because one of the things that we're
Yes.
doing here with Richmond SCLC is trying to get young people involved. As you just said to them, somebody's got to lead when we're gone.
Yeah.
And in order to be a leader, people don't understand. Martin Luther King was 25 years old the first time he spoke at Virginia Union University in the
Absolutely.
50s. He was 25 years old. Reverend Samuel Proctor, Reverend Dr. Proctor invited him to speak when he was 25 years old, right? So
Yeah.
young people got to understand this movement is a young person's movement. And that's why these walkouts today were very good because the young
Yes.
people stood up. And it wasn't always urban kids. These were a lot of suburban kids that stood up and
That's
said,
right.
we have a right too. And
Mhm.
some of the comments that came back about they should be ashamed of themselves and their parents should be ashamed of themselves. And I wrote a comment back on social media. I said, well, what if the parent agrees with the child?
Thank
What if
you.
the parent says, this is what I want my child to stand up for? You know,
That right.
so
Mhm.
so again, now help us one more time, and I'm not going to keep you long.
Mhm.
One of the things that I keep trying to tell everybody that uh, Delegate Bagby dropped on us that I wasn't aware of is same day voting.
Absolutely.
That as of October the 1st, which is this
Yes,
coming
sir.
Saturday,
Yes, sir.
Virginia has a law that says you can show up and vote on the day of the election. Tell me a
Yes,
little
sir.
bit about that.
So what happens with that and that law is you would be able to register and vote the same day, but know that if you're registering for the first time, you will be casting a provisional ballot, and that provisional ballot allows you to take, to have opportunity to vote, but know that that's not going to be counted immediately. That ballot would then go to the Department of Elections, the Board of Elections for your locality, where they will be the ones responsible for certifying each of those provisional ballots. So
Absolutely.
that's the difference. Yes.
That you are a verified eligible
Mm-hmm.
voter in the
Eligible.
state of
Yes.
Virginia. Now
Yes, sir.
here's a question that came up, which is I steal this question. So somebody is doing it for the first time and they want to vote and they live in Chesterfield. How do they know which precinct to go to, or does it matter which precinct they go to do same day voting where they're going to register? And in other words, could they actually vote, get a provisional ballot, and then have it thrown out because they didn't go to the right location?
Yes, sir. So basically, remember, the first thing they're going to do is register to vote to be eligible to even do a provisional ballot. So when they register to vote, that they should be registering in their locality, especially if they're doing it in person. They should be registering to vote in their locality. So as they're doing that, and what they should do is, well, I guess in the instance of, say, your grandson, I believe one that had not registered yet. So we know he can't register in his locality, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
So he'll be registering to vote. He's going to mail, but what he's going to do is mail his voter registration application. Remember, same day registration voting is a person is appearing in person at that precinct in their jurisdiction.
Okay. So what we have to do then is make sure that anybody who waits to the day of the election has to make sure they show up to the precinct in which their address says they should vote.
Exactly, or show up in the precinct that's in their jurisdiction of their residence area, I should say,
Right.
in their residence area.
Yeah,
Now, if they,
I said address,
mhm,
but maybe it's
yes,
so there's something else that you said that was interesting, which is they don't have to have an ID. They can use something else to register.
yeah. So, it's a number of forms. Now, the Department of Election or their local registrar's office will issue a voter ID for that
Right.
purpose only. But however, a utility bill
Okay,
that's
you
at that
can
address, or a government issue ID, a student ID.
student
A
ID.
student ID, yes,
Okay.
a state or I'm sorry, institution of higher learning or a high school student ID
Right.
for Virginia. For
Okay.
Virginia, that's
All
yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Well, Ms. Antoine, I truly, truly appreciate you. And Richmond SCLC appreciates you. And we thank you for taking this time. We're going to keep working all the way up to election day and after
Wonderful,
election day. Because guess
wonderful.
what? While this election is important, we've
Every,
been telling everybody else in Virginia,
mhm.
2023
Yes,
is
sir.
really more important than
Yes, sir.
2022. So
Yes,
we're
sir.
really kicking off, we're not ending with this election in November. We're starting
Absolutely.
because
Hmm.
everybody has to understand in Virginia, next year, all of our state representatives are up for election. All of the senators and all of the delegates are up for election.
Absolutely.
And
Yes,
next
sir.
year could determine the last 2 years of this governor's administration as to what we're able to either get done or not get done. And so,
Absolutely. Yes,
yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
Well,
So we're
thank you for
excited.
your thank thank,
Almost definitely.
thank you for your service to your country again, being a
Almost
Vietnam
definitely.
veteran, and then working
Mhm.
in voter rights and voter suppression, fighting voter suppression, and all of that. But thank you again.
Absolutely.
God bless you. Anything we can do
Yes.
for you, anytime you need Richmond SCLC, you let us know.
Absolutely. And can I just say one other thing? Because restoration of rights is a passion, but I do want to say this until the law is changed in Virginia, we
Yes,
have to rely on the power of the pen of the sitting governor,
that's
whether
right.
or not he or she's going to be compassionate enough to restore the rights. I'm an advocate for automatic restoration of rights, and I would appreciate any help you. I'm boots on ground with restoration of rights all day, every day, because I believe that every Virginia citizen should have the constitutional right to vote.
When they paid their debt to society, that debt should be marked paid in full and their rights should be restored.
Absolutely, sir.
Well, that's wonderful. We're going to work with you on that. Thank you very much. God bless you. And thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Anytime, sir. You have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.